I'm an ex-teacher, so I did a worksheet, gave them all pens.
Of course, PowerPoint presentation.
And I, so ask them a question, go round, and what's the best thing about aging? What's the worst thing about aging? And what I noticed was that all of us had different symptoms. Some had night sweats. I never had night sweats. Some had hot flushes. Some people didn't have hot flushes. Somebody had really aching joints. I was fine. But we started the conversations.
Age is a funny thing. Or rather, we are funny about it. Some people straight up lie about how old they are. Some people whisper about it in rooms where only a few others are in earshot, like it's a dirty little secret. But if you're lucky, aging is something you face the Karen Arthur way. Are you 61 years old? Do I have that correct?
I am 63, baby. Don't take my years away.
UK-based Karen Arthur wears a lot of hats. She's a mother, a school teacher, a fashion model. She also hosts joy retreats for women. She's written a children's book. And through it all, she's never been in the business of hiding her age, or really anything about herself. And there's one touchy topic for a lot of women and people with ovaries that Karen faces pretty head-on through her work. Little did everyone know soon you would be talking about vaginal dryness and hot flashes and night sweats to the whole world. Yeah. So they had that to look forward to learning.
Yeah, it's funny. My mum still doesn't know what I do, and it's fine. In fact, when I talk to her about what she calls the change, she just thinks it's funny.
That change we're talking about is menopause. I haven't entered my menopause era yet, but it's coming for me soon enough. And friends of mine have described it as such a drastic change to their bodies that it feels like a whole other puberty of sorts. And Black friends of mine have gone as far as to call it the grand erasure, a time in your life when you go from a person who already isn't fully seen by society, by the medical field, by the Eurocentric gaze of beauty, to nearly invisible. But Karen sees it as so much more. She sees it as a catalyst for deeper conversations about the ways we generalize and experience aging. So on top of everything else, she's the host of her own podcast called Menopause Whilst Black. On her show, she's opening up a long overdue and frankly often ignored conversation about the intersectionality of racism, aging, and menopause.
People love to overlook racism. Like when you Google the stress, there's a stress measurement or something. It's like you get points for if you've moved house or you've had a death in the family or you've had a divorce. Nowhere on that does it say racism.
From Vermont Public, this is Homegoings, a show that invites you to eavesdrop on candid conversations with people who will challenge what you think you know. I'm Myra Flynn, and today a conversation with Karen Arthur, teacher, author, mother, podcaster, and a woman who is aging loudly. As you'll hear today, there is nothing invisible about Karen now, though it wasn't always that way. She's overcome domestic abuse, mental health issues, and generational cycles of trauma to arrive where she is today, 63, Black, in the midst of menopause, and fabulous. This is her journey, and this is Homegoings. We're a proud member of the NPR network. Welcome home. Here in the States, we say so often as Black women, we cannot meet this Eurocentric beauty standard. And we call it the Eurocentric beauty standard, but you're actually over in Europe. So just wondering, as a Black woman, when did you figure out, well, damn, I'm beautiful?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of layers to the question. I've always loved fashion and I've always loved style and I've always been told I was beautiful, but believing it is another thing. And actually, I didn't really come into my own until my early 50s and maybe mid 50s. And it's been a long journey getting here, I would say, because even I'm so confident now, whereas before my confidence was on the outside. So in a sense, wearing clothing, choosing fashionable, stylish clothes, form-fitting clothes, power suits, heels, all the things, was an outward representation, but it didn't touch the sides of how I was feeling inside. Whereas when I had to go down to come up, so
It's been a long journey.
Yeah, it's been a very long journey, and it's not been linear. And in the grand scheme of things, there's an assumption that I've always been this way, and I absolutely have not.
I think about other women who are in their 60s that I know that don't necessarily feel, as beautiful or as visible, and as you do, and so yeah, we were going to dive into some of that secret sauce. But before we go there, I'm curious about your life. I guess I know that it hasn't always been fashion shows and storybooks and, life by the sea. So what happened when your life was looking like very conventional, and what was that life like?
I was with my ex-partner for 20 years, exactly 20 years, actually. We had have two beautiful children, daughters. We had a nice house in the capital, in London. I had a good job. He had a good job. We had a couple of holidays a year, 2 cars, all the things, looked good, in the pictures. But behind closed doors, it was a very different story. And I feel that his insecurities were taken out on me. Whilst it wasn't physical abuse, the man never laid hands on me. The other side to that is that kept me with him for longer than maybe needed be. Everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. I understand all of that. But my reasoning was he doesn't hit me. And therefore everything's okay. And I didn't actually I found it very difficult to see myself as a person who's an abuse survivor. And it's a conversation I've had with my daughters as well, that, yeah, it wasn't until I realised, oh, that's what was going on, that I started to heal, actually, and started to, took myself to therapy and stuff like that. But I dismissed a lot of stuff because of the outward persona of our relationship. We looked great. If you saw us in a restaurant or you saw us on a ski slope or, wherever we were, we looked like the perfect couple. But it was mental abuse. It wasn't even verbal, I would say. It was verbal in the sense that he would put me down, and I didn't realise he would make jokes at my expense, bring me right back down to earth. And I never felt I could celebrate my many gifts and talents and strengths. And it wasn't a friend of mine described my persona when he walked in the room as dimming. My light just dimmed. And I'm not about to do that anymore.
No, you're not. There's nothing dim about your light now.
We all know that mental health doesn't go away. It doesn't get better on its own. You have to do something about it. And so 7 years later, that came and bit me in the bum, literally.
What happened?
A couple of years after we split up, I had a really bad toothache. And the toothache, I now realise, estrogen leaving your body, perimenopause, can have a detrimental effect on your gum health. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know
that either.
Right? It's true. Look after your teeth, guys. Floss. And I ended up at the dentist with an abscess and had a tooth taken out. So I had time off work, of course. And then when the painkillers started to wear off and I was due to go back to work, I was in so much pain. I ended up going to the doctors, and the doctor signed me off for a week. So that was the first time that I thought, something's not quite right. 5 years later, it came back with full force. I remember 2014, September. So we've all gone back to school. The girls have gone to uni. My eldest has gone back after a sabbatical. My youngest has started. I've got the house to myself.
First time you're on your own in your home by yourself.
First time
now.
I'm on my own.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to love it. You know, I can run around naked. I'll know where everything is. All my clothes will be in the right place, you know. And I absolutely hated it. After 2 days, I was like, the house is really quiet. I do not like this. It's getting colder and darker, and my boiler breaks. And for the first time, I have to look at my life because I've got nothing else to do. You know, I get up, I go to work, I work, I come home, I do some more work, I go to bed, I get up and do it all over again. And I looked at my life and I was like, I don't like this. If I get run over by a bus tomorrow, I'm going to die unhappy. But I couldn't see a way out.
I'm just curious, what was officially going on? Like, how do you name it? Was it a mental breakdown?
I call it a breakthrough, but it was on paper, it's a breakdown. At that point, I didn't have a diagnosis, but I knew something wasn't quite right. I wasn't offered any medication or anything like that. I also knew that I was having hot flushes. I knew that my periods had stopped. So in the back of my head, I know something's going on with menopause, but I'm more worried about the fact I can't do my job. I've been forgetting to go to meetings. My brain is, foggy. And the job that I had always been able to do, I couldn't do.
Okay.
So all of those things, I wasn't looking after myself. I didn't care for the way that I looked. I didn't care for, I'd lost my creative spark. I stopped sewing, which is huge. I was existing. I was simply existing.
I told some people that I was going to be interviewing you, and so many women had questions about, like, what does menopause feel like? I'm putting two and two together while talking to you. This breakthrough also had menopause written all over it. And so when you talk about like the brain fog and the depression and the lack of spark and creativity, is this some of the stuff? And your teeth, your teeth deteriorating? Is this some of the stuff that comes with perimenopause, with the onset of menopause?
I always say, because people ask me this a lot, how do you know that you're in perimenopause? How do you know it's starting? All of my information about my own perimenopause and menopause journey is in retrospect. I didn't know what was going on whilst it was happening. Perimenopause wasn't a word I'd ever heard of. I now realise that, perimenopause, estrogen starts to decline, and estrogen affects every single part of your body. And one of the things that's important to pay attention to is not just your gum health, but skin changes, changes in your gut health. Your periods go berserk. You might be someone who's always had really light periods, and then they decide you can start flooding. So I always tell people, you'll have, a 6-week cycle, then a 2-week cycle. This is the thing. We don't pay attention enough to what is going on with our body. So we self-medicate. So we think, it must be, I don't know, we make things better by shopping, drinking, but we actually know what needs to happen. It's just that we've lost the ability to trust our intuition and trust ourselves. And we have all the answers in our head, in the sense that we know that we need to go to the doctors, but we don't have time to go to the doctors because we've got to do this for somebody else and we've got to do work. And do you see what I mean? So we put all that stuff off. So for me, mine started at 39 and it was the year before my 40th birthday, and I thought I was having an existential crisis. And actually, I just felt out of sorts. And I thought it was me. In fact, I thought I was being ungrateful. Because
For what?
Because I've got a nice house, I've got a car, I've got a good job, I've got a roof over my head. I don't have to think of, I've got beautiful children, I'm intelligent, I've got all the things. How dare I feel out of sorts? That's how I felt. And so I didn't do anything. And in the middle of that, my partner is doing what he's doing, and I think it's me. I need to buy some sexy lingerie and I need to spice it up in the bedroom. I put it all on me. It's exhausting. I don't know how, honestly, I was exhausted trying to think of that. But that's what happened. And so you fight that. You fight that feeling by working harder, taking yourself on a little spa break, getting your nails done, But actually what you need, and what I needed, was time to reevaluate. And what depression did was it licked me down. So I didn't have a choice. Do you see? What is it? You can't hear, you must feel. The body keeps score. All of those things hit me at 51, 52.
Wow. And it was necessary.
Absolutely necessary. Hello and welcome to Menopause Whilst Black, the podcast. We are the podcast that is committed to sharing the stories of Black people in any stage of menopause.
Your podcast is called Menopause Whilst Black. I'm very curious about the Black aspect of this because, you scroll through your phone to call for help and you didn't want to talk to your mom about going to therapy or this breakdown. I don't know. I just feel such a sense of having to keep it together all the time. As a Black woman, I just wonder, is there something different going on for Black women with this onset of menopause?
100%. It's so layered. I don't know where to start. When I realised I was going through the menopause, I started to Google my symptoms. I don't recommend that to anybody, especially at 3:00 in the morning when you're desperate. One thing I noticed was there were so many, so I thought I was dying. And secondly, that I didn't see anybody who looked like me talking about menopause. So all the people talking about menopause, or all the images, were of old white women, this is very important, with blonde grey hair in a bob, slightly longer than mine, wearing beige, this is important, with their heads in their hands.
Wow.
And so subliminally, I'm like, oh. And I've spoken to Black women who said they thought menopause was a white women's disease because we buy into that. What's that awful phrase? Black don't crack, which is just rubbish. And that is about aesthetically. But there's something about that phrase that is also, well, you can't have a breakdown. You cannot not be strong. The strong Black woman trope does not serve us because, listen, I was brought up by my mother, single mother, 4 kids. I'm the eldest of 4. And I have always been the person who does all the things. Looked after the kids, went to uni. I'm a bit of I just do it. I just get on with it, But I watched my mum get on with it. And she watched her mum get on with it. So where is the I don't know, the trope that says you can be soft, you can be easeful, you can surrender, you can let somebody else get on with it. And this is a problem for me these days because I find it really hard to ask for help. But the difference is I recognise it. At this point, I'm still at work and I'm still trying to get better to go back to work. And I think that bit's important. because I wasn't trying to get better. It was all about the grind.
Yeah, get back to work. Right.
Right? Because what else am I going to do? How else am I going to look after my kids? Like, there's no choice here. I now know that I'm the kind of person, if you don't give me a choice, I come out fighting. You know, if I feel I don't have a choice, or if you tell me I have to do something, these days, I'm not going to do it unless you give me a very good reason. But in those days, I felt I had no choice, you know. So I start to do my research and I find out, I read the Swan Report, which says that Black women in the global north start our menopause 8.5 months and up to 2 years earlier than our white counterparts. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
I read
Why
that as
didn't I know
well.
that?
I was checking that out ahead of talking to you, and I had no idea. And I'm,
Right.
super curious. There seem to be so many theories about why that is.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one knows because the research hasn't been done. The research for menopause is in its infancy. And people still don't know. Black women still don't know this. Now, my own theories are around, you know, racial weathering, the, you know, allostatic load, and how living in a racist, white supremacist society has a negative effect on our physical outcomes. All you have to do is put into Google or your, you know, chosen search engine, Black women and what comes up? Alzheimer's, mental health, outcome. All the outcomes, ours are worse, or Black people and. And so it incensed me. But at the same time, I didn't start the podcast then. You know, I started to talk about it to my Black friends, girlfriends. I invited them round to sit at my kitchen table and talk about, you know, menopause. And I'm an ex-teacher, so I did a worksheet, gave them all pens.
Of course, PowerPoint presentation.
You know, and I, you know, ask them a question, go round, you know, and what's the best thing about aging? What's the worst thing about aging? And what I noticed was that all of us had different symptoms. Some had night sweats. I never had night sweats. Some had hot flushes. Some people didn't have hot flushes. Somebody had really aching joints. I was fine, you know. But we started the conversations. And I guess that was the prerequisite for the podcast. The podcast came in 2020 when George Floyd was murdered and Amy Cooper weaponized her white tears.
I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
And that was the point, the other point that flipped everything on its head was like, oh, well, I can't be quiet. So I did a survey asking Black British women to share their experiences in menopause. And I remember there was no research about that at all. The reason so many people, I believe, filled in my survey was that they were thrilled to be asked. And that is reflected. It's like, no one's asked me this before. We are overlooked or assumed, you know. And the research needs to be nuanced because Black women, South Asian women, people from different parts of the world experience menopause in different ways. And you cannot lump us all together, you know. And I have to say, people love to overlook racism. Like when you Google the stress, there's a stress measurement or something. It's like you get points for if you've moved house or you've had a death in the family or you've had a divorce. Nowhere on that does it say racism because that's the overlying thing, you know.
It's the biggest stress.
So
it's the biggest loss. It's the biggest,
really?
It's the biggest death sometimes that can go on internally. Right.
Absolutely. And this is affecting, you know, how we are able to live, how long we are able to live, the quality of our life. It's huge. And so I just felt angry and perplexed that people didn't know that. The wonderful thing about Menopause Whilst Black, it provides a safe space for people, Black people who are socialised as women, to feel seen and heard. And that's hugely important. And I called it Menopause Whilst Black because I was going through menopause and I'm black. And I'm
And that's it.
unapologetic about that. And I have had white women say, can I listen? Which I think is the most stupid question ever. Like, I own the flipping airwaves. Like, calm down. But flip that over. Would I ever say to a podcast with two white women, oh, can I listen? No. You just listen.
Because that's the standard of everything we listen to and watch. Yeah,
but this is my life, my dear. This is my life.
It's so hard being fabulous. Yes, no, that's a strange question. But like, do they listen? White women?
Yeah, they do.
Why?
They're learning something, and I think that's important. Yes, it's important for black people socialised as women, but it's also important for everybody. Diversity is not this thing where only a certain person can listen to a certain thing or do a certain thing. Diversity benefits everyone, which is why the political situation we're in now, where you are and where I am, just feels wild, because the short-sightedness, is it baffles me. It really does. Well, it doesn't baffle me. I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, right. But I see what you're saying. Like, you're like, yeah. I think that's the thing. A diverse world, and especially one where black people feel safe, who are historically treated the worst in the world, means everybody's being heard. Everybody's being treated better. Everybody's having more opportunity.
This thing about us starting menopause earlier and not knowing why. Well, I'll tell you what, I would like my message to all women, but particularly women of colour, black women, is we need to look after ourselves first, earlier. The reason my menopause hit me the way it did is because I did not look after myself. I did not think I was worthy. I put all my energies into looking after everybody else, particularly my children when I split from my partner. But having the opportunity, because that's what depression was, that's what menopause was, as awful as it was, the opportunity to really sit my backside down and get very, very quiet. Everything literally flipped upside down. But I had no choice but to go quiet because, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a job. I was unemployed, I didn't love my life. Whatever I'd been doing before wasn't working. So I had to flip everything on its head. And I vowed to myself that if I was going to live for another 30, 40, maybe 50 years, that I would curate my life doing things that I love. And I've stuck to that. And it doesn't mean that every day is a, fairy tale day. Far from it. I still have to send emails. I still have to cook for myself. Someone come cook for me, please. However, I do the things that align with my values. I go where the joy is as much as I can. And I let go of that feeling of scarcity because I lean into a feeling of what is for me will not pass me by. And everything is temporary. What you're worrying about now, you're going to laugh about in a year's time, I hope. I think as we age, people who are socialised as women are encouraged to go very quiet and become invisible. And we lose, because we're not seen as conventionally sexy, or we can't have kids. People think that we just need to disappear, don't have an opinion. Well, I'm older and I'm wiser and I'm louder and I have more knowledge and more experience. I am not going to be quiet.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to continue to be a part of the Homegoings family, stay in touch at homegoings.co and subscribe to the Homegoings podcast wherever you listen. Take good care.